me hear you just say anything.
Hi there, Adam.
That sounds good. Hi.
Hi.
Has it been a year?
It's been
or
a
two?
year. 1 year. 1 year.
Okay, I thought so.
I talked to my friend whose children's book publishing office we did it in last time. He was a little heartbroken that he wasn't asked to repeat. You know, he felt a little left out.
Wait, what was this?
Remember we went and did it in my friend's?
Yeah. Oh, yes, of
Yeah.
course, the publisher.
Yeah.
Right?
He-
Wasn't it like a children's book
publisher? Yeah, and he feels left out now, just so you know.
What was the company again? We'll plug him.
It's called Source Books.
Source Books.
Source Books.
Check out sourcebooks.com. or just Google Source Books.
Okay, my God, he would just giggle to no end if we did that.
Yeah, no, let's plug him again. It was so nice of him to lend a space. You know, I myself have certain appointments and, I try to make it as convenient as possible. I had a space in Brooklyn for us, but then I was like, I wasn't even in Brooklyn. So I'm
Right.
like, I'll ask Michael. I did it once before, and he was amenable. So this time I thought this was a natural because he's a
filmmaker.
documentary filmmaker anyway, so he should meet
In
you.
the future, I actually have a new place. Friends of mine now live in London Towers on 23rd and 9th Avenue, and there's a space there, a little private room that we could use.
Okay.
Just saying.
Okay, the new studio of Filmarks Radio. Wouldn't
On
it be
the
funny
run.
if I just set
It's
it
on
up
the
there?
run, Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They'll be like, "Who's he again? Oh, it must be charming. He's back."
I have one space that's also available. It's in Long Island City, so again, it's not.
Oh yeah.
And there's actually, it's a green screen.
Right.
It's a.
Oh.
I have a virtual set. It's fantastic, and it looks, for all intents and purposes, like, well, of course, it looks real.
Yeah.
That's the idea. If it didn't, it would be odd. And that's my but. Wow.
An outburst of birds.
Of New York City.
And someone
ladies and gentlemen.
talking to the birds.
Yeah.
I love it.
So this is why we keep the door open, because that was
ambiance,
captured.
you cannot.
No.
You can't create that.
You can't write it.
Make it up.
No.
You can't write it.
Exactly.
You can't. Yeah, but we're not going to talk about the bed bugs anymore, are we?
No.
No. Okay, good.
Um,
We've covered that. I feel like we've definitely
Adequate.
covered that. I did last night. I was walking home from. I'm not trying to plug myself here, but from
Please.
the Emmys, and I had an Emmy, actually two. And
I wish you had brought it.
This guy said to me, "Where's the subway?" And I directed him as best I could. I said, "I'm
Yeah.
not a New Yorker," and then he looked back and he goes, "You be careful with those things." And I'm like, "I'm the one. I have
You're
lethal
brandishing-
weapons here. I
brandishing.
could poke eyes out. I'm totally fine."
Is there like wings? I forget
the
on the Emmy.
wings in the back, and
yeah,
they're very
right,
sharp, and so 4 wings
Right.
altogether.
How heavy are they? I've held them.
Yeah, they're pretty substantial. 8 pounds, something like that.
That's
I mean,
so you
you
could
could poke
do
an
some
eye
damage.
out for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it works pretty well.
Where were they? And they were held. Oh yeah, in,
They're up at Jazz on Lincoln
Jazz
Center.
Center. I saw something you posted about that.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Last season.
Yes. Well, it's
And-
actually half of last season and half of the season before, because
Oh,
they do
right.
it by the calendar year, and my series goes
Is bifurcated, as we talked
so
about last
some of
time.
them, some people are like, I mean, the big window was Life Animated by the wonderful Roger Ross Williams, and that was a long time ago, but that's
It
just because
is.
it broadcast in January.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Just shows you how long the life
Of
span
these
of
films
a film
are.
can be. You know,
they never quit.
he's like probably 2 films in by now.
Exactly. And 2 more about to come out.
Yeah, I keep seeing him all over the social media stuff too.
He's everywhere. Roger is.
I was going to just look up our last episode so people could refer to it. Also, I think it's nice to be able to play them in tandem if possible.
Back to back.
Because
Adam and Lois.
Adam and Lois.
Wow, it's
a-thon.
a new comedy on NBC Wednesdays. It's
Not on PBS.
The new must-see television. No, PBS. It would be a little too out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you might be right.
Yeah, people have no idea what's going to happen here.
441.
441?
Not that far back.
No. What number is this?
I do a lot sometimes. I just keep pumping them out, so it's like ridiculous.
So people literally have to find it by the number of the episode.
Well,
not the
it's a way
date.
of just a quick way. They can Google it too, but this is going to be probably mid-5 so 513 or
Wow,
something.
you
When
keep working.
I know, I keep doing it. It's a compulsion and a passion. It's a compulsion.
Compulsion, compassion.
Yeah, it's a passion of mine. Of course, I enjoy it, and I keep getting again off mic. This week I'm meeting with Peter Bogdanovich.
Oh.
Last week,
Picture
Peter
Show.
Biskind.
Oh my
and
God.
Peter Rieger just agreed to do it. The
Is it-
actor.
I think you have to rename it the Peter
Peter.
Show.
Peters.
Because now I
It's
feel
Three
totally,
Peters.
Yeah, Three Peters. That's a new comedy.
Yeah.
The
It
Three
does sound like
Peters.
one. The three,
Yeah.
and it has all sorts of mixed meanings or multiple meanings.
Yes.
But it had Peter Rieger, who was like years ago in Local Hero,
Yes.
Animal House.
Yes.
He's a great
Local
actor.
Hero, one of my favorite films of all time.
A lot of people. It's
Oh,
a
I
real
loved that
cult
film.
favorite.
For a long time, that and Something Wild by Jonathan Demme
That
were
is
my two
great.
favorite films.
Those you have great taste. Those
Yeah.
are both really
Then
great.
Time passed, and I had to pick some new ones. Or I didn't take them off my love list. I
Right.
just other things got added.
Yeah,
It's a little warm in here. Might just be me though.
it might be.
Oh, there's more ambiance.
Well,
I
yeah,
can't
that's
see
super.
what's happening because it's happening behind me.
I
So
know.
I'm imagining.
Yeah. I could turn. Well, the air
I
conditioner
feel
is
like it's-
making a hum.
No,
with it,
no,
so
that's
that's why I
fine.
turned it up.
I feel like the face you made, though, like we're in the middle of Halloween. Like
Yeah.
Jamie Lee
Don't-
Curtis is
don't-
going to
don't-
start
don't.
screaming at any second.
Yeah, don't look. Don't turn around.
Don't turn around.
No, it's
If
just the
not
super.
a rat, I'm okay.
It's the super of this building putting
Oh.
the garbage out on the curb. So
There've also been a lot of conversation about rats, I just want you to know, since I got to town on Sunday or Saturday.
yeah.
People are talking rats.
Well, there were a couple of recent documentaries.
Yes.
About
Rat
rats.
film, one of ours.
Yeah.
Not rats. But
That
those
was-
rats were in Baltimore.
Yes.
They were far away from here, but maybe
Yeah.
distant
Theo
relatives
Anthony's
of your
film.
rats. Yes.
And then also the I don't know if you can say this anymore. Morgan Spurlock. Can you say those words?
He's out there somewhere.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
I wish him well.
Yes.
Morgan Spurlock did it. It wasn't as great. I thought it was, but it was an idea.
Well, this is funny because we have a film coming up that is about large swamp-like rats, rodents of unusual size.
Rodents of unusual
And that
size.
wasn't even
Those guys.
You didn't even set me up for that. I just pulled that out of my hat and
Yeah.
used
Well,
that
those
as a
guys. I was
shameless
supposed
plug.
to meet with them today. Well, one of them, Jeff Springer.
Here in town.
Yeah, he's here, and I feel bad because I didn't. We had it open for today, and I was supposed to get back about more specifics, and I dropped the ball.
Oh.
So I woke up to an email from Jeff Springer, and I said we could do it after this,
Right.
just coincidentally.
Yes.
And then he said, well, he's off to something like important, and so he
Very
said
important. I
maybe
wonder
tomorrow.
if he's going to the same important thing I'm going to. I have something important later too.
What's that?
Well, my friends at POV are having their gala.
Oh, right.
So,
that's what.
yeah,
what
so
it is.
I don't know.
Maybe that's.
Or maybe he has other important things.
Yeah.
There's
So
lots
you
of
are friends with
important
POV?
Oh,
That's
love
allowed?
them. Absolutely. They're buds. Justine and I, we joke because we're both from Minnesota. You see, even when I say it, I fall back into that accent, Minnesota.
Minnesota. Yeah.
But no, so we consider ourselves sister series. We
course.
want PBS to have great documentaries.
Yeah.
So there are occasionally films we both want, and we sort of duke it out in the back room a little bit. But
Uh-huh.
if one of us gets it, that's great. So yeah, they're very good friends. So
yeah.
I'm going to go party with them tonight.
Oh, have fun.
Celebrate their gala.
Right.
Give 'em
That's
some
like a
cash.
major fundraising function.
Yes. Oh, so
Oh, sorry, that
rodents of
it's not-
unusual size, they
Yeah.
can come back because we're not broadcasting it.
Okay.
Well, I know they're in the middle of their theatrical, so they want to plug their theatrical. That's-
Did it start already?
I think it did.
Oh, okay.
But our broadcast is in January, so from my perspective, you've got lots of time.
All right, we
to
could
talk
always
about the
yeah.
film.
And he's in town. He has yet to get back to me about meeting in Long Island City tomorrow. Like I'm going to be in Long Island City in the morning, and he can meet in the morning. So I said if he can meet me there, because it's right on the G, and he's in Greenpoint, which is
Those three filmmakers are utterly delightful. They were so fabulous to work with. We funded the film, and I remember they came in. We do an orientation when we fund filmmakers. We bring a group of filmmakers in, and we spend like 3.5 days with them. We sing karaoke, and I just was like, if you guys do this right, this is going to be so fantastic. The idea of using humor to talk about all the different things they want to talk about in that film, and they did it right. It's a really marvelous film.
It is. I'm just kind of just wild that that's one of your films.
Yeah, conversation about rats.
I kind of just choose films through, like I don't even know that I'm aware of my criteria
Right.
for who I end up talking to.
It's just something that comes into your orbit.
It comes into my orbit on my radar, and then it has to be also timing. It has to be sometimes if it's through a publicist, my relationship with them.
Yeah.
It could be if people contact me directly, as was the case here. Originally directly, and then through their publicist.
Okay.
But if everything just sort of lines up, it happens,
Make it
and
happen.
it just seems that. And then, of course, most importantly, I have to watch the film
Yes.
and respond to it.
It's how. Oh yes, exactly. Have you ever done
that.
one where you just was like, I don't want to talk about this film.
Yeah.
But then still had them on.
Yes, I see what you mean. I've done that because I found another way into the conversation. This is actually an interesting, very, very brief example is, and I don't, if they're listening, they say they're listeners to the show, so they could very well be listening, but we actually have this conversation. I just had a problem with some, it was actually a narrative short. But it was, the idea of it was what was interesting, and also the trajectory of the film has been very interesting. And it is a geriatric version of Annie Hall.
Oh, wow.
It's like they literally took the same dialogue. Now, it's not the entire film. They condensed it wisely.
Yes, wisely.
But
because those older people talk slowly.
And it's also on a, they went to the senior home. They tried a number of them to cast it from a senior home, and finally one senior home finally came around and agreed to do it.
Oh my God.
Or to try to help them make it happen with their residents, and they did do it. And so most of the actors, actually all of them are non-professionals. Right. And some of them, it's a little bit difficult. And I was just like, I just don't think the quality was there. But they had already 2 articles in the New York Times that filmmakers already had gotten so much press from doing this. So as a sociological and as a age-positive project, I thought this was a great conversation.
Well, and there are films that I don't particularly like, but I still enjoy talking about it because there's something in it that was interesting, or even why I didn't like it, or why I felt it could be better. So, we don't just talk about the things we like. Sometimes talking about things we don't like is actually more helpful and interesting because they challenge you in some way.
But you, when it comes to documentaries, when people, they contact you directly sometimes?
Do you mean to have
to solicit?
See? Well, okay. So most of the films that we broadcast, we fund.
So people, ITVS.
Yeah, or I commission directly.
Okay.
I have a small amount of money every year that I can commission films. So I was able to commission Tower, and I'm
Keith
Not Your
Maitland.
Negro. Keith Maitland, and Newtown, and this wonderful film coming this season, Black Memorabilia. So, or they come through ITVS, and ITVS funds them. And then in terms of the films that we acquire that we didn't fund, people, I go to film festivals, sales agents. Most of the sales agents are, people I know professionally. Some are friends of mine. And sometimes the filmmakers send it to me directly. So they come in all, 700 of them from all over the place.
Yeah, all 700.
Plus, it was 742 or something last year.
Just documentaries that are
want to be broadcast.
Looking
for a broadcast.
Okay, that's a large number.
It's a large number.
Well, there's like 3 or 4 platforms, right, or channels.
Yeah, and growing, but not
CNN.
Actually a lot. Yeah, that buy them. I mean, there are CNN. Courtney, a friend of mine, Courtney Sexton. They fund a small number, but I don't know that she acquires a lot. I think because it's a limited. But so there aren't as many platforms as there are films. That's for sure. It's a buyer's market in that sense. There's just so much incredible work being made right now. Really quality, great work that gets into great festivals and still doesn't find a broadcast because it's a glut of content.
Yeah, of course. And there's no strategy that you can or formula. It's like as a filmmaker, if I'm being extremely, maybe I'm coming from a business standpoint or whatever, I'm trying to put together the right documentary, which will have like Sundance,
the dream, and then a theatrical release,
and then a theatrical in 150 cities,
in 150 cities, then it'll get broadcast, and then Netflix or somebody or Hulu will pick it up and stream it for the next 5 years. That's sort of the dream scenario. That scenario.
Who falls under that? Like we said, Roger Ross Williams.
Yeah, I mean a fair number of people. Morgan Neville, but not every film that everybody makes does. I mean. Oh,
and we forgot the Oscar and the Emmy.
Oh, we forgot, of course. We totally forgot that. And a Peabody if you can have a chance at it. And then maybe a few audience awards when you're out on the festival circuit. And then there's the international film festivals. So, it's a pretty robust thing. But it's all changing pretty dramatically. I mean, the way the field is just constantly evolving. And now the idea even that all of these films could have a theatrical is, of course, not possible. There's just not enough theaters to show all of them. And although this was a successful year for a few documentaries, Won't You Be My Neighbor, RBG, That's the small
Three
number of
Identical
films.
Strangers.
Three Identical Strangers, exactly. Those are a small number of films that actually made money at the box office. It's still not something that most consumers go to the theater to buy.
Is it? And it's marketing that gets that.
I think it's
that
marketing,
gets,
but also
people don't like. I don't know. The average person doesn't think of the documentary as one of those options for their weekend.
Yeah,
movie,
they're like, let's have a date night, honey. Yeah, let's go see a film about
maybe
girls
in
sold
Brooklyn.
into sexual slavery. Yeah, exactly, in Brooklyn.
Well, they do
Some
that.
parts.
They're like, or you get those people that are just, I love documentary. It's like they refer to them almost patronizingly about them. Like, they're so cute. I just want to pinch
They're
their
like
cheeks.
a pet.
Yeah,
They're
they're
like
like,
pet.
something that they wouldn't do with, I don't know, some.
Well, I think the ones that hit it big this year, the three especially that we just named, all have very life-affirming, positive. Like, they gave people a sense of hope, something to really rally around. So I think it's not coincidental that those three films were really popular this year. I mean, especially Won't You Be My Neighbor? It really is a film about acceptance, understanding, kindness. I mean, all these things that we're kind of craving that seem to be just in very short supply in the public space as well as in the media everywhere, certainly in politics. And RBG, I think people just rally around her because there's so much love for her as a person. And it's, Betsy and, one of the filmmakers talks about how she's just this little dynamo and people want to connect to that. So, yeah. And, Three Identical Strangers, I'm a twin, so.
You are?
Yeah, there's nothing like a good story. I mean, they're triplets. Clearly, they outdid me by one whole body. And yet, a great story.
Are you an identical twin?
Fraternal.
Okay.
Yes, I have brothers who are also twins, 2 years older.
Oh, I
Two
hear
sets of twins, 2 years apart.
Yeah.
My mother's a saint. I always tell this story. It's a great story. So one night I'm walking down the street with my husband and I see a double stroller. That means it's twins and I get very excited. So I go over and I say, oh my gosh, you have twins. And this woman says, she looks around and she just looks really haggard. And she goes, yes. And I said, I'm a twin. And she goes, your mother is a saint. You call her right now and you tell her you're sorry for every terrible thing you ever did to her. And I said, no, you're right. My mother is a saint. I'll call her. And she goes, no, I mean it. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, chill.
Yeah, really.
And so I said, well, actually, there are two sets of twins 2 years apart. And she turns to her husband and she clobbers him with this left-hand hook. And she goes, did you hear that, Bill? I swear to God, if you do that to
lay
me,
a hand on me.
I'm out of here. And I was like, okay, we're going to go now. Have a good life. And we sort of strolled off. It was definite fatigue. The poor woman hadn't slept. So, yeah, my heart goes out to a mom with twins.
Well, I mean, I'm a divorced, but from reality. But but one of my ex-sisters-in-law was also a mother of two sets of twins. She had one was fraternal, and the other was identical.
Yeah,
the bottles.
There's
and
a lot
cans.
of bottles going on. By the way, we're in a beautiful gallery down, just north of Houston. So there are no varmints. It's an animal-free zone except for the dogs outside,
right?
And this fly that really likes us.
We're at the workspace also. It's in a workspace of Michael Rosado Bennett, who's a friend and
a wonderful filmmaker.
I
got to meet him today for the first time.
Did you see Alive Inside?
I didn't. Well, yes. No, I thought you were going to say when it was at Sundance, and I was like, no, I didn't get to see it at Sundance because they were all sold out. But yes, I did eventually get to see it.
Won the Audience Award that year.
It did indeed.
A plug for Michael.
Yes, a plug for Michael and a great film.
I just did 2 weekends of training for some volunteer stuff. I'm doing hospice work.
Oh.
I mentioned because the woman that ran it at the Hospice of New York, she does music. It just coincided. They needed me to furnish references.
Oh.
And one of them was Michael.
Oh.
So she was like, she was
How
so excited.
Could this be?
That
exactly.
was
What a
writing
tie-in.
a
Exactly.
reference.
Now you talk about hospice work, and then you make me think of The Providers, our film coming this season, The Providers, which is about rural healthcare crisis in America. And it's about, part of it is young people coming in to help take over the medical problems happening in small towns all across the country. Ours is set in rural New Mexico, but this idea of who's taking care of people. Everything you say is making me think of.
No, that's great. That's on the next season.
Yes.
Well, first let's since you brought it up, I'll leave some of that. I'll figure out how to leave that in. without sounding like a jerk. But you, let's just back up a tiny baby step and just give me the sort of the framework of the next season, where we're at when it went. I know there's kind of 2 blocks.
Yeah, 2 chunks.
Two chunks.
We'll be beginning our 17th season in October, the last Monday in October, which I believe is the 29th. And then we run October, November, and a part of December. Mm-hmm. So that's our fall season. Then we go dark for PBS Pledge, and this year the holidays. And then we come back the first Monday in January with The King, Eugene Jarecki's extraordinary film about Elvis and the American Dream. And then we run from January through early June.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you mentioned that, The King. Eugene did the podcast.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. If people are listening and have not listened to your podcast with Eugene, they should just maybe not turn us off, but definitely listen to that next.
Okay.
He's such a smart, interesting guy to talk to and listen that it's worth their time.
I don't remember what I called him, but I said something.
Oh, not Jarecki, you mean?
I don't remember. Yeah, I must have said something else. I don't know. I didn't know quite if he was kidding or not. He's kind of intense, dude, you know.
Well, he's a very, very smart person, and he's got a lot of things that he wants to share.
Sure.
Yeah.
And he had a lot to say, and he got the smarts. His brother got the looks. I don't know what.
And what was he here for a specific film?
Eugene?
Yeah.
It was for the theatrical.
Oh, The King.
Of The King, yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Good.
But you listened to it, I thought. So I'm just kidding. Okay. Just teasing you. And then we'll go back now to this other film you mentioned about the young.
Yes.
Are these medical professionals that are young, or are they just like
it's a
community
combination. It's
activists?
a combination.
Okay.
We're in rural New Mexico, and we follow healthcare providers. Some are doctors, some are nurse practitioners, and they're all dealing with the opioid epidemic, which is horrible, and alcoholism, a lot of things which are the result of poverty and lack of jobs. So, and they're in this very rural community, a lot of, immigrant families and other people who are just sort of struggling to make it. And then they cannot keep medical staff there. Everybody leaves because there's no money. So what they're trying to do is inspire young people to stay in their community and become doctors and nurses. And they bring them in through these volunteer programs and going into the high schools and trying to excite people about the career opportunities they could have and still stay in their community. Because the biggest thing facing most of these small towns is lack of jobs.
This is not a new idea, right?
No.
This is. I remember in the rural South, they had no doctors for the nearest place hospital or doctor was 200 miles away, and they needed to. So the town would pay for a medical school for one of their residents, and the agreement was if you do this, you have to come back and live here and practice here.
It's that same thesis that we need to inspire people who have a personal connection to this place, so that they won't, because other people come in and they're wonderful, but a year or two later they're like, oh, I want to go back to wherever they came from. So the idea is to really build people who, wherever their small town is, that they want to go and reinvest in their small town.
Yeah.
So and the characters are really, really interesting. It's also unusual because there are a lot of films dealing with the opioid crisis and other things, but this is really through the lens of the providers. So you get this unique perspective about what it takes for them. They drive hundreds of miles to go see their patients. They're like old-time country doctors, and yet the need to be close to their patients to really help them through these periods of crises is really hard because of the distance and obviously their caseload. Some people are carrying such huge caseloads. So it's an interesting film, and it looks at, like a lot of films this year, I think as always filmmakers respond to what's happening in the zeitgeist. So we have a number of films that are about rural America that take place outside the big metropolitan cities. And ironically, these filmmakers were making those films before it became a talking point in the last election, because filmmakers usually are ahead of the culture. They're out there talking to people and bringing in stories, and they
Right.
probably didn't know it. But when I look back now, I'm like, oh my God, I have 9 films this year that are set in rural America,
Really?
and those filmmakers were making those films. Some of them leading up to
Sure.
before certain people declared they were running for president. So
I don't know who you mean. Oh, and if you look at a film that was maybe a nice companion to what's the name of the
Providers.
The Providers, and who are the directors?
Anna Moot-Levin and Lauren Green.
Okay. The companion, it's not a new documentary, it's been out for about 5 years, is Remote Area Medical.
Oh yes, I
One of my
love that film
favorites.
with Jeff Reichert and his wife.
Yeah. But Remote Area Medical, yeah, I love that.
That
documentary.
scene where the guy comes in with the really bad teeth, you just are
Exactly
like,
what
oh
it was.
my God.
First of all, I was surprised. That's a film, for those listening, if you're still listening, about, it's a much different approach to it, because it's like one day a
Yes.
year where they show up at this racetrack in Tennessee, I think it was, and where they, in the Ozarks or
Yes.
something, and all the folks come out there, and they get their days ahead because
Yes.
there's only a finite number of people that can
That
be
they
seen
can
of
see it
course,
in a day,
in
yeah.
one of the 2 days that they're just
Yeah.
setting up this MASH unit.
Yeah, it's
essentially.
like a
Right?
mobile medical. Yeah.
Unit. And so people arrive days early and they can't get seen, and it's heart-wrenching. But the thing is that I was surprised by how many of those cases, it was about people's teeth,
Yes.
not about other medical
Yeah.
issues. Well, it was that too, but it was about their sense of self-esteem.
Yeah,
We're
they-
tied up in their smile,
Yeah.
and then being able to look somebody in the eye and feel...
Like, yeah, they could open their mouth and not have, but they're, and just missing teeth, and also bad, dealing
Infections
with
and-
infections
and
and
all
stuff
that.
like that,
It's really-
terrible pain that they were living through.
Yeah, that's a really powerful film.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
Yeah. And it sounds as though that the Providers is also.
Yes, it's of that same ilk. It's looking at, although this time through those providers' lens, really just like what it's like to continue to support when the money's running out, and your days are 14 hours long, and also with one of the particular characters, she's a doctor and she's trying to deal with the crisis by using medical intervention, and a lot of her colleagues just don't even want to deal with people who have opioid. They're like, and she said, they're in your waiting rooms too, you're just not treating them. And so she's trying to acknowledge that. So even, she has a pregnant woman that she's trying to help her, get clean before the baby's born. So yeah, just really great character studies.
There's a big article in the New York Times Magazine about a month ago or something like that about pregnant and addicted women that are addicted and pregnant and kicking,
trying to kick it.
Yeah, these were, many of them did. They really, it humanized them. They really, of course, were extreme, terrified that their babies would be born. There's so much guilt around it.
Absolutely.
So what are the titles? Are we?
Black Memorabilia.
I don't know that
Rumble.
one.
Black Memorabilia it premiered at MoMA.
At the Doc Fortnight, or
No, just as a screening.
Okay.
It hasn't really had a lot of festival exposure. The filmmakers kind of just wants to go to television with it. But it's about Black Memorabilia. The filmmaker is Chico Colvard, who made Family Affair.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what an intense film that was.
Yes, what an intense film.
About his own
exactly.
father, right?
Yes, exactly.
Chico, yeah. Oh, I didn't realize that was what.
Yeah, he's fantastic, and it's very interesting. And then we have Wrestle, which is premiered, I can't remember where it premiered, but I saw it at the San Francisco Film Festival. Tres Maisons des Sons, which is a Tribeca
houses.
film. That's about 3 young men, Tres Maisons and Des Sons, whose fathers are all in prison.
Okay.
And so they're trying to have relationships with their dads. And then Hale County, this evening. Have you talked to Ramel Ross ever? It
No.
premiered at Sundance.
What's his name?
Ramel Ross.
No, definitely not.
He's a photographer who went down to this small town and was teaching and started taking pictures, and his photography is so extraordinary, and then he started filming. And so it's very cinema verite, but it looks at life in this small town, the African American community. It's really beautiful. It's not a typical doc in the sense of 3 acts kind of thing. It's very impressionistic, but so beautiful, and there's humor in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the guy who directed Field Niggas.
Oh yeah.
And then the subsequent movie about also similar type of approach. He's also a street photographer who, I mean, with no background in filmmaking,
films.
but it did, and he's had this incredible.
Yeah. Well, I think Ramel, when I first met Ramel, he was not sure what he was going to do with the footage he shot, because he was like, he literally said, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with this, but I really like these characters. And it was so beautiful. The images were so beautiful. And so he stayed true to his vision and really did just make this sort of a character study of this town and these families and this community. It's very poetic, very impressionistic. I just love it. I think it's really, really beautiful. And Ramel directed it, and the producer is Jocelyn Barnes, who produced Strong Island with Yancey Ford. So she's very good with films like that, where it's a personal story and more impressionistic than traditional,
Yes, right.
So, and I mean, there's many other films. We have 21 films, so there's a lot to talk
That's
about.
rather excessive, I think.
It is rather excessive.
Well, how many?
It's a lot to keep track
So
of.
you have 21 films. Is that's the number you are hitting every year, or
We
does
usually
that
have
shift?
22.
Okay.
Yeah, this year we have one less just because they ran out of time slots for us. We had got preempted for something, and so
The election. It's
Yeah.
right in the middle of your.
Yeah, but not that this year. I think there's some big thing on PBS in the spring, some series or something. So they bumped
Oh, I
us
see.
off one night. So
For the second chunk. Of
during
films.
that second time period.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's get in as many titles as you want. It's very surprising. I haven't seen. How many I haven't seen? I haven't seen the
Wildland
Wrestle.
was called Young Men and Fire. It
Didn't see
premiered
that.
at. God, I forget where these things premiere now.
Silver
It did
Dogs.
just
I
play.
don't know,
It
it's
played
like
at Camden.
Okay.
And then we have a film Dawnland, which played at Camden, and now ironically they're the first and second films of the season. Dawnland and Wildland. Got a lot of land. Dawnland.
It's a typical title.
Yeah.
Just choice.
Dawnland is an incredible film about the first reconciliation process in the United States. In the state of Maine, the state government realized that they had been they'd been taking Native American children out of their homes and placing them in foster care. And this went on all the way through the 1980s. And the belief was better any home than a Native American home because they just won't be raised properly. There was a lot of residual colonialism and savagery. I mean, just the horrible things that have harmed the Native community for centuries. And so finally this came to light, and the practice was stopped, and the tribes said, we don't feel there'll be actual healing until there's reconciliation, truth and reconciliation. So the state government, starting with the governor, really invested time and energy to go out to the tribes and to talk through what had happened to them and to try to get them to tell their stories. And they modeled it after what had been done in Rwanda and Africa. It's very powerful because we hear directly from a lot of men and women, some of them now in their 70s, who were taken from their parents, or some of them who had their children taken from them.
Yeah.
There's one particular scene that I just fell in love with. It's actual footage from when they testified before Congress and the laws were passed to end this from continuing. And it's these people just coming in and talking about the fact that they had their children taken out of their homes, like when they were grocery shopping. And there's one senator who's just incredulous. He's like, you mean you came home and your children were gone? And they're like, yes. And, of course,
What does this remind me of?
Yes, that was it exactly. The timing, this is what I'm saying about these filmmakers.
Right.
So the idea of children of color
Right.
being taken away from their parents and, not necessarily imprisoned, but for them, a different version of imprisonment because they were such large numbers of children taken.
Yeah.
And, for example, there's one character who talks about she was then molested by the family that took her in, the white father.
Right, and there's all sorts of predatory people
Absolutely.
that will obviously exploit.
Take advantage of this situation.
These situations,
exactly,
that's
and so
their ideal, as was these centers where these
Absolutely.
kids, these little kids in the last year were.
Yeah, and the thing about it, Adam Mazo is the director, and Adam has been working on this film for 5 years. So it was all
Right.
there, and then it literally, as is so often the case, it finished right
on
as
the cusp of that.
this was happening in the larger thing. And so it's a great way for us to have audiences talk about this ongoing issue in American history
right.
of when we demonize a group and we decide we're going to destroy them.
What is it? Patriarchal.
Yeah, separate families.
With this rationale of patriarchy,
yeah,
or whatever you want to call it, right? That begs a question, actually, since you brought it up. There's no doubt going to be a slew of documentaries about the immigration crisis.
Apparently, hundreds of crews at the border.
Right,
hundreds.
Right. And I saw it on the screening committee for a couple of festivals, Black Lives Matters. I saw lots and lots of Black Lives Matters after. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was created, obviously, as a reaction to stuff that had been going on for years. And so you have those documentaries that were very early on, following cases of police brutality and, wrongdoing. But then there's a bunch after. I wonder if, like Independent Lens, if you're looking for projects from that are ahead or proactive in that way, as opposed to reactive. Not that, again, I don't want to say a lot of the reactive films aren't doing amazing work and getting incredible access, et cetera.
Yeah.
But I wonder if for Independent Lens, and specifically if that's an appealing thing, is getting some, finding those types of stories that are opening up.
Oh, absolutely.
These things ahead of.
And I think it's the case for all the good filmmakers that they are. Like I said, I mean, they talk to each other, but they're still working in some level of isolation. Mm-hmm. So when we have something that like happened at our border, obviously there's a huge rush of people to go make that film. Or when there's a shooting at Parkland, there's a huge rush to go there. But then there are always all these other filmmakers who are looking for sort of the other story that's not being talked about. So, for example, I just met a filmmaker yesterday who's making a very different kind of film about violence in high schools. She's not going after the shooting thing. She found this incredible story, which I can't really talk too much about because she's just at the stage where she's making it, but it's ahead of itself in the sense that it's, there are all these crazy things happening, I think crazy things like giving guns to teachers.
Right.
And so her film looks at that issue, but from a very different perspective, a very different story. And so, those are the ones that are the most exciting because I feel like those filmmakers have their pulse on something that's just bubbling up and that will, the Black Memorabilia film, Chico had just made Family Remains, which is, 8 years ago? I mean, a long time ago. And I met him and I said I loved his film and it was going to somebody else. And so I think that was back when Oprah was buying documentaries. And so I just stayed in touch with him. And I remember calling him and saying, what are you working on? And he was talking about a couple of things. And then he mentioned Black Memorabilia. And I was like, let's do it. And so we funded that film at least 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. The film got done right when white supremacy and taking down Confederate statues and this whole idea of appropriating, slave culture, right when that just literally came into the zeitgeist again. And there's this beautiful film talking about, Black memorabilia and what does it mean to manufacture and then to sell and appropriate these images. And so, one of his main characters that he had been filming with is a white woman in South Carolina who sells slave robes. And there's one scene where she goes, well, you could also get a robe for your horse. It's that whole thing.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I saw that footage, I was like, well, that's only a few people care about that now. And then within a year, 18 months, we were all talking about all the white supremacists. So I think filmmakers literally are so attuned, and all of them are trying to find the next new story that nobody else has discovered.
Oh, sure.
Yet.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that. And even some of the ones that do make films that are in response to something that's going on.
We have
maybe, I'm sure there'll be lots of also, Never Again.
Absolutely. But Me Too, and now all of them.
There'll be lots of documentaries, but and they're going to be great, or some percentage of them will be. Yeah. I just was wondering for specifically, less pedantic stuff.
Well, there was a film, we are co-funding this and co-presenting with our friends at Frontline, Rainey Aronson and her team. It's called Marcos Doesn't Live Here Anymore by David Sutherland. And this is the fourth film that ITVS has funded. He does long films. He did The Farmer's Wife, which was a huge hit on PBS back in 1997, and then Country Boys, which looked at Appalachia, young boys in Appalachia, and then he did a film called Kind-Hearted Woman, which was about a Native American woman dealing with the repercussions of sex abuse in her own life and within her family. And then when he finished that film, he took 10 minutes to rest, and then he wanted to make a film that was sort of an intersection of immigration and patriotism. And so he found this incredible woman who was a decorated Marine, and then she came after serving her tours of duty. She fell in love with a Mexican man, and he gets deported. So the film is really all about, she is so loyal to our country, wants to serve our country, and yet our country deported her husband to Mexico. And so we followed them over the course of, I believe it's 4 years. I'm trying to remember when we funded it, how long we've been working on this film. And then eventually, and then once the last election happened, his chance of getting allowed back in just disappeared completely.
Of course.
So
Jeez.
the filmmaker was definitely ahead of the curve. He was talking about what's going to happen to these families before we started to even talk about building walls. But they're in their own walls because, the husband can't come back to the country. And so you look at it from this very intimate perspective of how does that shape a marriage, because they are able to see each other, so they actually have more children together, but the mother lives with the children in Ohio, and he's living in Mexico, and it's a very,
It sounded like, as you were starting to describe it, I was reminded of Deborah Granick.
Oh, yes.
In her documentary.
Yes. Stray Dog.
Stray Dog, yeah.
Which is also an independent lens. Thank you.
It's
You're
funny
plugging
that.
us here left and right. I love that.
I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, but you're right, because the veteran who fell in love with the Mexican woman.
So it's about patriotism.
Yeah,
and again,
exactly. I mean,
Mexico.
the motorcycle ride to the
It's
Vietnam.
a double feature.
Yeah, it's a double
You
feature.
could do it
We
on
can
your
bring it back.
right on. You stream films.
Yeah,
So
yes.
maybe just work out the legal part, and I'll do the curation.
Well, yes, exactly. I'll just take ideas from you.
Yeah.
She, by the way, is a great filmmaker with her
She was
narrative
on.
film this year.
She was
Yeah,
on.
I
Yes,
really
I
like
had
Deborah.
her on for that. Deborah Granick.
Yeah.
Episode number. She was terrific. A little shy at the beginning, kind of talking. She, probably not somebody who loves doing.
I don't think she loves press. Probably not.
but-
She loves making films and being with her characters and.
But once you're in the you're in the bubble,
You
the film
gotta
wax
sell it.
bubble. You're
Oh.
also yeah. You
Film
do have
wax
to.
bubble.
You do have to sell.
No, you have to
It's part
promote
of the
films.
bargain.
It is. Some people love it. Other people would just as soon.
Yeah,
Leave
Kelly
it.
Reichardt didn't like it very
Oh,
much
really?
either, and they kind of are making films that are in the same sort of
Yeah.
sphere, if you will,
Yeah, exactly.
subject matter wise.
Sort of very personal stories about people kind of going up against big problems in isolation.
Right, and kind of stories about people that live out there,
Yeah,
in the
out there,
expanse, in the world,
in those little small places in America.
in America. We are running low on time. I want to get another place back, but for the full list of films, is that
Yes.
now someplace readily
Absolutely.
available? where
It's
people-
on our website. Go to pbs.org/independent lens. And all the films are there, and we have websites for them, and we have write-ups. And for some of them, we have the promos or the trailers that people can take a look at. But yeah, and then with all of our films, they will stream. So they broadcast on Monday nights, either 10 o'clock or occasionally 9 o'clock. And then they stream at pbs.org for 2 weeks, 14 days. So if you miss the broadcast, or if you're just not a television watcher anymore, which a lot of our listeners, let's face it, they are not. Appointment television is not what it used to be. Please stream it.
But there is also recording your TV, and
Yes, there's all kinds of options.
It's great. It's not that hard to figure that out.
Yeah. There are
right,
ways
if
to
you're-
make that work. But lots of great films. I'm really proud of the fact that we have a lot of women filmmakers, as always. I think 51% of our films are made by women this year. And some
It reflects
first-time
the
filmmakers.
population, right? Isn't it?
Absolutely. It's very nice when that happens.
Yeah.
But some first-time filmmakers like Ramel Ross, and that's always great. We love it. And then people who have made many, many, many films like Morgan Neville. So, it's a real wonderful mix of different kinds of stories. Yeah. We hope people will tune in.
I hope so too. We'll do our bit. It's at the end, again, October
October
Season is
29th,
29th.
Monday night, and every Monday night for about 5 weeks, and then go away and celebrate the holidays, and then come back
Yeah.
January 7th for the King, because it's the night before Elvis Presley's birthday. So it's a perfect time to, think about the King again. He would have been 84.
84 years old.
Yeah. Died at 42. That's half his life ago.
Wow, that's shocking.
Isn't that crazy
It
to
is
think
crazy.
he died? Watching that film again the other day, I realized the American dream really has taken its toll on some of our heroes.
Yes.
Some of the
Yeah. You're going to open a can of worms right before we're kind of winding
Sorry,
down.
we'll
That's your
close
bad.
the can of worms. I'm sorry. Yeah, Adam, you're right. I just can't stop
Well, it's
myself.
a lot of fun to talk with you.
Yeah. It's always great talking with you.
Yeah.
I hope you don't have to do a lot of edits.
No, I don't think so. It's so straightforward. Do you have a trailer for the new season?
Yes, we can
So
send
use
you that. The other thing I would tell people, we also do screenings through our Indie Lens pop-up series, which is here in New York. We actually have one where we pick 6 films each year, and then we do screenings around the country, and we bring the filmmaker, and they do Q&As and have a panel discussion afterwards.
Oh, why aren't I more involved in those?
And then the other thing we should be talking about is Indie Lens Storycast, our new digital series, which launched, which is multi-part digital-only series, 2 episodes to 7 episodes. Each episode is about 5 minutes long, and they're like Independent Lens, but hipper, younger. So we just launched one last week called Tacos for Texas. 2 taco journalists travel the state of Texas and introduce us to culture through tacos.
And they make some great tacos.
They make great tacos, and
Yeah.
that's just one of many. So
Right.
there's lots of great ones coming up.
Yeah, when you go to the Independent Lens, you'll see right as you hit the spot, hit the website. There's a link for the
Go to Storycast, yeah.
and check out all the shorter works.
Exactly. They're really fun.
Yeah,
You can't watch them on TV. You have to watch them online. Thank you, Adam, for having me.
anytime.
It's a lovely, lovely afternoon.
It is. It was
Yes.
nice to see you again.
Great to see you.